Across the Gulf region, nations are taking emergency action following a fresh round of US strikes on Iran. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps released this video, which they say shows missiles launched at US targets in the Middle East. In Bahrain, people have been urged to shelter in their nearest safe location because of an aerial threat. Meanwhile, in Kuwait, it's deployed armed forces to defend itself from an attack. It's condemned the missile launch on its territory, calling it a dangerous escalation. And the UK Maritime Trade Operations says a container ship just east of Oman was damaged, a fire on board causing people to abandon the vessel. 10 Indian nationals have been rescued and one is still missing. Well, these pictures are from Doha in Qatar. 3 people there, including 1 child, were injured by falling shrapnel following Iranian attacks. US Central Command says it's hit 140 Iranian military targets, including missile and drone sites, as well as ammunition storage facilities. These are the latest pictures released by US forces of those fresh strikes. Iran says it's disabled a second vessel in the Strait of Hormuz and says it's closed the strait until further notice. Well, let's get more on this from our correspondent in Jerusalem, Caroline Davies. And Caroline, just bring us up to date with the reaction from Iran to this latest wave of strikes.
I think all of this is really centering around the Strait of Hormuz, as you detailed there. We've seen a number of strikes back and forth between the US and Iran, but this all started after there was another ship that had been hit close to the coast of Oman. We then had a response from Iran saying that it had fired a warning shot, struck a vessel that it said that was travelling on what it referred to as an unapproved route. It then also gave a warning saying that retaliation would be met with a severe response. But of course, we then saw a US strikes on Iran, Iran strikes on US military bases, very similar to what we've seen in the course of the last few days. This is the 3rd time we've had a strike in the course of a week. And I think it's worth pointing out 2 things. Firstly, the fact that this cargo ship seems to have been hit or seems to have had sustained this damage while close to the coast of Oman. And secondly, that referral by Iran talking about an unapproved route. Now, Iran wants to have ships coming through its designated routes, which go closer to its coastline. Meanwhile, there have been other routes that have been going close to the Omani coastline through the Strait of Hormuz. The big concern I think that Iran has is it does not want to look like it is losing any form of control over the Strait of Hormuz, not just because that is important for its negotiating position, because ultimately that is one of its major trump cards in the negotiation between the US and Iran, the fact that it can ultimately end up having a stranglehold over the global economy, as we saw earlier, of course, in this conflict too, when the strait was closed previously. But also Iran is portraying this as being part of its sovereignty, that it wants to have control over the strait. Meanwhile, the US has been adamant that Iran does not have control over the Strait of Hormuz. And so every time one of these ships is being hit, the US then responds back and the whole cycle begins again. I think the bigger question as well is what happens next from here and whether or not this tactic is working. So if the point